The British capital makes a return to the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship this year after a 4-year absence. The Royal Docks will be the home of the Electric Racing Series this weekend for a doubleheader of wheel-to-wheel action on the streets of London. An iconic backdrop will set the scene, the track winding along part of the River Thames and into the Excel Centre. You can see other iconic landmarks there in the distance. The business district setting the city skyline of London. Looking a little bit damp this morning, a typical British morning, unfortunately, for our drivers here today. There you are, you can see attack mode that the drivers will be tackling later on this morning. Now, this is the first indoor-outdoor track in the history of the FIA Championships. And here we have some of the drivers arriving this morning. In the dark, there's Oliver Rowland. Robin Fries there having his coffee, and looks like he's got a little bit of a breakfast box alongside him as well. There we go. We've got Tom Blomqvist, Mitch Evans, all having a bit of a chat and laugh with Nick Cassidy there, the Envision Virgin Racing driver, who's really set to impress this season. Right, let's look at the Driver Championship standings. Sam Bird, one of the 7 British racing drivers competing here in London this weekend. Top of the standings, but only 5 points ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa. Joint third, Robin Fries for Envision Virgin Racing. Down there, Lucas de Grassi in 12th for the Audi Sport Ab Schaefer team. Stoffel van Dorn, the EQ driver. Points have not been coming for him in the last few races. 54 there, joint with Max Günther and Jake Dennis. Then, yeah, there we are. That wraps up the driver standings. Let's take a look at how the teams are shaping up. Very competitive. Just 5 points between the top 3 teams, Envision Virgin Racing, DS Techeetah and Jaguar Racing. Of course, it's a big home race for them. Their first home race in Formula E. They've got a lot of guests, so they are going to be looking to impress. Right, let's bring in our lead commentator, Jack Nichols, to take us through the track here, the incredible track, 2.25 kilometre long track here at London. Yeah, and this is the start section where you come through turns 1, 2, 3 and 4, then you burst outdoors. Yesterday it was into the sunshine, today it appears to be into the miserable rain. Down the back straight where you get the switchback hairpins at turns 10 and 11, then through the long right-hand sequence of turn 14, 15, which tightens and tightens into 16. That's where attack mode is, as you mentioned, Nikki. Then this quite nice sweeping sequence of corners, 18, 19 and 20, back inside at 21 and out across the line. 22 corners on this 2.25 kilometre circuit, and it was pretty entertaining yesterday, but whatever the teams and drivers learnt yesterday kind of goes out of the window. It's been 30 degrees all week, Nikki, and then now it's race day. We're back. Honestly, we didn't have a wet race in Formula E for, I think, 6 seasons, and then this season, they've all come at once, haven't they? I mean, look at that downpour. But, I mean, I suppose the good thing is, well, the thing I'm particularly happy about is the pit lane is indoors, so I'm not going to be getting wet today. No, exactly. That is one benefit. But I think the drivers are really in the hands of the weather gods today. It's going to be particularly tricky in qualifying, you know, if the weather changes throughout the group sessions. And you can see here, it's dry, obviously, indoors, but it's also undercover in that run up the hill to the indoor section. The east and west ramps are both undercover, so there's going to be separate parts of the track that are bone dry and absolutely soaked down towards turn 16. This is where you come indoors at turn 21, this left-hander at 22, and that, as Nikki says, is the indoor pit lane on the left-hand side and the run down towards the first corner. So doesn't it look fabulous though? Yeah. Look at that view. I mean, absolutely spectacular there. I mean, I'm really excited because, of course, because we're indoors, we have this incredible lights display, and I think it's really going to bring such an amazing atmosphere to all of the fans who are sitting inside to watch the start of that race. Robin Fries getting ready to go out. Now, of course, there was some practice running yesterday. Everybody, well, the top 5 were separated by less than 1/10 of a second, but that all sort of goes out of the window now, and out onto the circuit they go. Jean-Eric Vergne at the front of the queue as as DS Techeetah are the reigning champions, and we'll see just how wet it's going to be out there. Oliver Rowland lighting up his rear tyres as he got to the pit lane exit point. But yeah, this is going to be their first experience of in and out. I think it was Jean-Eric Vergne was saying yesterday, you do get some racetracks like Spa-Francorchamps famously where it can be raining at one end and not the other, or the Nordschleife or something like that. But you know the weather's moving and the weather's changing, whereas
is always going to be dry indoors, you hope, anyway.
But this is the beautiful thing about being able to do this in Formula E, because of course we just have the single tyre. You know, Michelin have spent a lot of huge amount of work crafting a single tyre, so they don't need to change from wet to dry tyres like you do in other series. So actually, fortunately for the drivers, their tyre is going to suit this slightly wet and dry track.
Very wet and dry track, isn't it? Wow, look at that.
They're going to get a shower going through that corner.
Yeah, Nick Cassidy coming through the turn 10 and 11 switchback, and this looks really, really slippery out there. There's quite a lot of standing water as they drop down the hill through that chicane at turn 6 and 7. This is the run down towards 16. Verne going towards attack mode for the first time. And Da Costa, you can see splashing his way through the exit.
So much water on the track, isn't there? I mean, that really is a bit of a swimming pool.
Yeah. And the drivers have got to try and find the grip out there and try and work out where the grip is, where the standing water is. There's some of it. But it won't be too much of an issue in terms of, you know, aquaplaning, because they won't be on the sort of big, long straights, I wouldn't have thought, as Da Costa comes through the final corner now.
So I'm looking at my weather report, and it says it's going to be dry between 11 and 2.
Okay.
So there you go.
It looks pretty dry to me.
What time's qualifying start? That hopefully means they're going to have a dry session.
Yeah, but I think there's so much rain, and it's been raining kind of all night, really. And as a result, there is a lot of water to disperse, and it's only, what, 17 degrees air temperature? This looks a slippery part here. Da Costa coming down out of turn 5 into 6, 7 and 8. And look at it, everybody is trying to gap out a little bit. And look, you can see where they brought the wet water, obviously, in from outside. And then it'll dry up as you go down the start-finish straight and then go out again. So the water obviously coming inside a little bit. And down they come towards turn 1. Stefan Kammerer and Ericsson in the 2 Dragons. Then Blomqvist and Turvey in the 2 Neos. And then Max Günther coming out last of all.
Fortunately, I think that the track surface that's been used, particularly on the indoor section, is nice and grippy. They kind of laid this resin down to just give the cars as much grip as possible. So hopefully, at least, they'll have that on their side.
Oh
no.
Van Dorn. And he's clobbered something, hasn't he? Look, the front left, and he's in the runoff area, and he's hit the front left of his car, Stoffel Van Dorn, at the maybe at the braking zone for turn 10. Now he's trying to get that restarted, and he's managed to reverse away from the damage on the front of the car, but can he loop it back around? Only 4 minutes into this half-hour session. This is a shorter session. Look at the spray coming off the rear of Da Costa's DS Techeetah as he comes down towards turn 1.
The rear, I don't know. Front for sure. I don't know if I can make it back.
Oh dear. Van Dorn unsure if he can make it back. So he's obviously had quite a big one.
It's such a shame, isn't it? I mean, what's happening with Mercedes at the moment? They showed such promise at the start of this season. Oh, let's take a look. Ah, wow.
Wow.
Huge slide.
So he's done a 360 on his way into turn 10. That's quite remarkable from Stoffel Van Dorn.
And that's quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, he's hit that front left very, very heavily indeed. You can see all the suspensions and wishbones are bent. The rear is probably okay, but I think he's right. It'll be tricky to get that one back. So how? He must have lost it in the braking zone and done a full 360.
And this is just a reminder of how difficult it is. You know, you've really got to look after your car in practice, because of course if you go and damage the car before qualifying, that has huge implications for the rest of your weekend. There's Ian James, the team principal, thinking, can we get this car ready in time?
So he's off behind the barriers now, Stoffel Van Dorn, and that is the end of his session. He's going to be climbing out, and he'll probably have to watch the rest of the session in the rain. And that is so frustrating, because he'll have no real wet weather. Look, and there's a look at them coming through into the turn 10 braking zone. There, whoa, there goes Sergio Sene Camera having a huge moment. So that must have been what happened to Van Dorn.
Oh.
Blomqvist having the same troubles. Oliver Turvey coming through a little more sensibly. Same through for Günther. So some of them are hitting a bump or something, or is there some? I think there's a zebra crossing. Look, there's a zebra crossing just there.
Good spot.
But
so
whether
got no grip.
Yeah, whether that's where they're lighting up the rear tyres on the zebra crossing, because that'll be just really, really slippery. There you can see it, just going from left to right. and maybe that is what causing the drama. You see it quite often, that zebra crossings are the slipperiest parts. Here comes Da Costa over it now. See, he kept it quite neat and tidy. Sebastian Buemi, little loose. Oliver Rowland next up. It's like zebra crossing, watch this. He makes it through no problem at all.
And there isn't really any way that you can avoid that, because as soon as the wheels hit, it is just like hitting ice, isn't it? Particularly in the wet.
Good job the Beatles didn't have that problem. We're not too far from Abbey Road here, are we? What, 45-minute drive or something?
On a good day without too much traffic.
Indoors.
If you take the tube.
Yeah, exactly. Indoors, Eduardo Mortara into turn 1 and 2. It's a fantastic job they've done with the XL, isn't it? To turn it into this race circuit.
I mean, who would have thought? It was brilliant. I think I was interviewing Alexander Sims and he said, oh, the last time I was here was for the London Design Exhibition. And now I'm here racing. But it's so true, you know, this has been the home of so many incredibly huge exhibitions, really well-known exhibitions. It's also been the home of some sporting events for the London 2012 Olympics, but definitely the first time it's ever hosted a street race, and it really is remarkable how they've completely transformed the event. A super impressive job, it's got to be said.
I was last here in 2012.
Really?
For a Star Trek convention.
Oh no, I thought you were going to say for the Olympics.
No.
I mean, so many
it's
questions going through my mind right now.
It's 100% true as well.
I just have to ask one quick question. Did you dress up?
No.
Oh.
And it's only my second ever Star Trek convention as well.
You just admitted it was your second.
22 minutes to go. Evans is quickest on a 1:30. We were in the low 21s earlier on, so 9 seconds off the pace. Wow! Eduardo Mortara aggressive through the curbs at 19 and 20. Now into the indoor section. Through the left at turn 22 and out across the line. That's the timing line and finish line there as Eduardo Mortara goes under the bridge. Franks and Cassidy both in the pits, so both Envision Virgin cars back in the pit lane. Everybody else getting lap times on the board.
I mean, who would have thought coming into London, you know, the real business end of the season, that it would be Envision Virgin Racing leading the championship? Okay, not by much, just by 2 points ahead of DS Cheetah. Right, okay, so we're now on board with Lucas Di Grassi. Let's see how he could cope in the rain and also see how he does over that zebra crossing.
And we're on with driver's eye at the moment. There we go, look at that, splashing the puddles. And as he's turning to look left, he's getting splashed right in the face by the puddles, obviously, that are kicking up into his face.
Oh, was that another zebra crossing? Did we just pass one?
Now he's coming up the east ramp. Well, you heard the spike there of the wheels spinning, and now he's into the grippy part. So how much he was fighting with the car before. Little bit of a slide coming out onto the start straight.
Main time loss, sector 2, 1.5 tenths. 1.5 seconds, sorry.
I mean, how do you think you feel?
Yeah.
Say that again.
1.5 tenths. Oh no, I mean 1.5 seconds. Sorry, what?
It can't be easy for the Audi team looking ahead, you know, in Envision Virgin Racing, who are their customer team. And they're well ahead. You know, I think, what, 30 points ahead of them, which it's not going to be an easy one to see your competitors really doing quite well, doing phenomenally well, in fact. Here we are on board with Sam Bird, who's leading the championship at the moment. Went from a real low in New York City, of course, when he damaged his car in practice. The team had to rebuild it pretty much from scratch. They did in about 3 hours. It was a phenomenal performance and effort that they put in. He managed to finish 9th in that first race and then completely turned it around and won. Took pole position and had an amazing lights to flag victory, and that puts him, catapulted him basically from 11th to 1st in the championship.
Looks drier out there, doesn't it? As he gets splashed with a bit of water.
Drier.
But yeah, exactly.
Still very wet.
It is still very wet, but there looks to be less standing water around. The track is drying up a little, and as a result, the lap times are coming down. Nick de Vries has just done a 29.6, which is 2 seconds quicker than they were doing 3 or 4 laps ago. Bird out across the line. Down towards turn 1 again. And he backs off now after that push lap that put him second quickest. And Mitch Evans, his teammate, now goes second quickest as well, with 19 minutes to go. But it's just going to be a never-ending journey of learning. And the conditions will be totally different in a few hours' time for qualifying.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the tough thing is, isn't it? You really want to get your quali lap practice in during the morning sessions, but how helpful is that going to be if then the weather is completely different and the conditions have completely changed by the time you actually put that quali lap in? But it is all about the learning, and interestingly, you know, we had FP1 yesterday, which is unusual, but it's given the teams a little bit of extra time there to spend the night prepping, analysing the data and getting together what they learned during that FP1 session and put it into practice today, this morning.
Rast and Degrassi in the Audis.
The real benefit, though, of having FP2 or FP1 yesterday and FP2 first today is we got a lion. An extra hour in bed.
Yeah. Which I think the drivers will be quite big fans of as well, some of them especially. 18 minutes to go. Rast and Degrassi currently 10th and 21st respectively as they come up indoors now.
Rene Rast really is the king of data in this championship. The team always say after every session he goes straight to his laptop and it just analyses and analyses, and I think it's had a real influence on Lucas Degrassi actually, and the approach that he has in Formula E. There's Alan McNish, their team principal. Bit of a favourite in the pit lane, I'd say. We're going to miss him next year.
Yeah.
When we don't have Audi.
Oliver Rowland.
Gonna leave a big hole.
Yeah, certainly. Oliver Rowland is in attack mode. One of the only drivers who's actually in attack mode, using that extra power, 235 kilowatts. You can see the blue flashing halo, and he's on a bit of a push lap here. Coming down into the right-hander of turn 16. You heard someone else activate attack mode just a moment ago. Lin now goes to the top of the times, a 1 minute 29.239. 3/10 clear of Buemi. Rowland really chunking those curbs. Rear end a little loose on the brakes as he comes up inside and now out across the line. We'll see if Rowland goes across the line and gets particularly high up the order. Third quickest for Rowland. 3/10 slower than Lin. Lin's lap might have been in attack mode actually. And this is Mitch Evans. I think it's also stopped raining. Just looking at the marshals and the people in the grandstand, the brollies are down, they're not taking cover, and actually you can't see any drops, can you, on the puddles? So it looks as though the rain had stopped outside. Inside it still feels like you're in a casino where you don't really have any concept of the time of day, as Evans comes across the line to go quickest. 1 minute 28.772, and his teammate Sam Bird goes second quickest, 3/10 slower. Jaguar were right up at the front of the order yesterday on pace. And there's James Barkley on the right-hand side, team director, and that is Eduardo Mortara in the Venturi garage. Rene Rast coming back in, so 16 minutes to go. A few changes to be made, and then back out on track. Looks quite dry there, actually, doesn't it? On the run down into the chicane. And Lotterer now. Now let's look. You can. It looks a lot more stable now over that zebra crossing as well, doesn't it? Where Van Dorn came a cropper earlier on. Lotterer lying 18th in the championship, but a couple of point scores in the last race, and we go on board in driver's eye with Andre Lotterer.
Yeah,
and you can see the spray. Sorry, Nikki, just of the car in front. And you can see at some points it's difficult, some points it's easy to see where the car is. It looks like, well, it's moved out of the way now. I think it was one of the Jaguars.
No, I was just going to say he had a good weekend in New York.
Yeah.
I think it hasn't quite come together for him, has it, this season? You know, there have been real signs of promise, but it's never quite come together. He had one podium in Valencia, but he had a respectable 8th and 5th finish in New York.
He was going for the lead in Rome, wasn't he, up the inside of Stoffel Van Dorn? Before they collided,
well,
got a penalty.
The problem. that tends to sometimes happen quite a lot with Andre Lotterer. So close, and then it all falls away. Ooh, bit of a skid there.
Robin Freit's looking lively. Coming through 18, 19 and 20. Hashtag London E-Prix if you want to get in touch over the course of the weekend on social media. It's so interesting how much the car and the track grips up, but it's still a little bit wet. And then once you're out of that final corner, it's pretty much bone dry down the start-finish straight.
Now, we always talk about how important qualifying is, of course, but Robin Freins, who was in Group 1, of course, in New York, managed to move from 21st up to 8th. Now, that is a phenomenal job. It's not going to be as easy here, though, because I think...
Whoa! It's not going to be any more, because he's nudged the wall. Freins skidding down, and he's just got away with that one.
That was rather lucky.
Wow. Look at that, a little bit of damage on the nose, but that is it for Robin Freins. Full 360 pirouette. Beautiful stuff. I give it an 8.
It was great.
A 10 if he didn't touch the wall, but he did. He was quite a way out of the corner. Wow.
Slowed just in time.
And he's been looking a little leery throughout the session. Freins' theory was coming indoors. Back end kicking out a little in attack mode. With the blue lights above his head.
They look great under the lights, don't they? I think the cars, they just really light up. They look spectacular.
Teammate Nick Cassidy goes 9th quickest as he comes across the line after a lap in attack mode. The two, well, Envision Virgin leading the championship despite not having won a race. And in fact, they are the only team in the top 6 in the championship that haven't won a race, and they're at the top of the championship.
But Nick Cassidy, I mean, phenomenal. 51 points he's managed to put down in the last 3 races, and that's catapulted him into 5th in the championship, and a real championship contender. You know, 11 points between him and Sam Bird. You know, Sam Bird has been in Formula E since the very beginning. He's done every single race. Nick Cassidy, he's a rookie. This is his 12th race in his Formula E career, and he is just doing such a phenomenal job. I think he said about halfway through the season, it just felt like everything was coming together, and it really has. I love how you can
Sam Bird's
see...
seat, of course, at Envision Virgin after Sam went to Jaguar. Were you about to say the driver's eyes?
No, I wasn't. I was about to say the halo. I love how you can see the halo really lighting up. Because you know sometimes when it's...
felt really mega, man.
Oh.
So
Well done, Nick.
He's saying my
Highly
lap
confident.
felt, well, yeah, but he was 2 seconds slower than Mitch Evans. So that's the issue, I think, is that they're saying you're 2 seconds slower than Evans, and he's saying, well, the lap felt mega as he comes back into the pits now.
I mean, the times, it's ridiculous how much they're split now. I think in FP1, there was 1 second between the top 23 drivers.
Yeah. Now
And
it's
now they're...
3 or 4 seconds, isn't it?
1 second
Freins
between the top 6.
Robin Freins obviously had that spin on his push lap, but he's 5 seconds off the pace of Evans at the moment. This is Nick de Vries. Whoa! Loose coming up the east ramp. What you can see, what I will say about the driver's eyes, is they're all having to wear clear visors at the moment, as so you'll be able to see their eyes a lot more as de Vries comes down towards turn 1. Actually, he's got a little bit of tint on, hasn't he? But Lucas de Grassi said yesterday he put his normal visor on, as we have a replay of Sergio said in camera. Oh, he's in the runoff area. That's where Robin Freins went off at turns 6 and 7. There's a little 3-point turn and gets going again. But Lucas de Grassi said yesterday he went out, no, it was Jean-Eric Verne, sorry, went out with the sort of normal tinted visor on, and it was okay when he was inside, and then he went outside and it was fine. And then when he came back inside, he couldn't see a thing. Couldn't see a thing. So he had to come back to the pits to change it.
Yeah, because the visibility... Oh, okay, so there was more damage
Yeah, that's
than
not
we
too bad.
originally thought.
That'll buff out. They might not even change it, honestly, because there's no...
Really?
Yeah, well, they probably will for qualifying, but
I
it's
see.
probably not
Not
worth
this
it for the rest
session.
of this session, because, well, Robin will only break it again. Won't he? So there's the crunched carbon fibre at the front of the...
Got a question
Envision car.
on Twitter. Did you get any autographs when you went to the Star Trek convention?
No, I'm not really an autograph person.
Selfies?
No, I'm not a selfie person either, really. I would have loved to have met Patrick Stewart, but, you know, maybe he needs to come to a Formula E race. Nick de Vries is quickest on a 1:27.781. This is Tom Blomqvist in the Neo. 5 points for Blomqvist this season. All coming in the 2 races in Rome, which was a strong weekend for the British driver. Hashtag London E-Prix. Coming through this sequence at the
I think the halo looks really cool because it's like properly lighting up.
Yeah.
Normally, I think the lights outside are so bright you can't quite see the colour. Just looks
Diriyah,
mega.
you see it quite cool in Diriyah as well, don't you?
Yes, being a night race.
But normally we go to lovely sunny places. That's the issue. So that's the one positive of being in England where it's raining. As Blomqvist comes down into turn 1. De Grassi is 19th quickest, whereas Blomqvist 12th quickest. Plenty quicker than his team, 1.3 seconds quicker than his teammate Oliver Turvey. And there is Robin Freitz getting ready to head back out in a few moments' time. Just doing a few changes to the tyres, maybe changing the tyres. 8 minutes to go, here's Lucas de Grassi. Coming through turn 9 onto Sandstone Lane.
I mean, despite the fact that Lucas is only 12th in the championship, he still is consistent. And this is what we always say about Lucas de Grassi. You know, consistency is king, and he is the king of that. He's scored in the last, or it's 7 out of the last 11 races, which is more than most drivers, that's for sure. And, of course, he managed to get a podium in New York City.
And that followed his win in Puebla. So things were coming together a little more for Audi. This also will mix up the qualifying groups, this weather today, because normally Group 1 is the one you don't want to be out in. It might still be the case if it continues to dry throughout the session, but if it starts to rain a little more after Group 1, then it could end up being the group to be in. So I think those top 6 in the championship, Bird, Da Costa, Freitz, Mortara, Cassidy and Verne, will be fairly satisfied, I think, that this weather has come, because they have a chance to kind of get away with being in Group 1.
Maybe, but if the track is drying, they're going to be in Group 1 with the wettest track.
Absolutely. So it could go either way, but in just a dry race, it's only going one way. It's only getting worse if you're in Group 1, whereas here there's a chance with changeable weather that it could mix it up a bit.
I wonder how much track evolution there would have been, though, because actually, you know, particularly the indoor section, it's not a very dusty track. You know, normally when we're in the real heart of city streets, they are very dusty and dirty, so you see that track evolution, but I'm not quite sure we would have seen as much here today.
Yeah, it was, the dust got cleared up quite quickly, and they have been working really hard to clear up the circuit and clean it up. As Antonio Felix da Costa lights it up.
Was that just for us, do you think?
Yeah, I think probably. Da Costa getting going again. Max Günther in the BMW I Andretti.
But I think this is just an incredible demonstration, isn't it? We can race anywhere.
Yeah.
The fact that Formula E have managed to build around the Excel Centre, you know, wrapping around the side of the River Thames is really quite spectacular. So I think anything is possible now.
And it's genuinely quite a cool track. It's obviously not the huge long sweeps of Rome or Santiago, but it's pretty cool. Through the chicane there goes Max Günther, next to the Docklands Light Railway on the right-hand side, where a lot of people were watching from yesterday while they waited for their commute. Little wide of the apex there for Günther in the wet conditions with 5.5 minutes to go. Lynn quickest at the moment. On that last lap, he went to the top of the times, a 1 minute 27.499. De Vries and Buemi, I think, are trying a little bit of attack mode.
Tire pressures are higher than at the beginning of the session. 5.2.
Copy. Box now. We stay parallel to the pits and we bleed them.
Günther saying the tyre pressures are higher now at the start than they were at the start of the session. Roger Griffiths, the team principal there of the BMW I Andretti team. Norman Nato going up into 13th place in the Venturi. Here's Nick De Vries. Now, he's at full power, but he's half a second away from Lynn in the first sector. Now, we were saying yesterday that this is not a particularly power-sensitive circuit. As a result, the move to 250 isn't going to be as huge as we see at some other tracks. I guess that is exacerbated even more in the rain as De Vries comes up to turn 16. And now starts swinging through the 19, 20, well, 18, 19 and 20 sequence up the east ramp. Middle sector for De Vries is 6/10 away from Alex Lynn, who's still got that quickest time, which I don't think was on a full power lap. You can see the purple flashing above De Vries' head off right up to the wall on the exit, and De Vries remains second quickest. Didn't actually improve, went about 7/10 of a second slower than he had managed previously on that last lap. Sebastian Buemi is improving, and Lucas de Grassi's going slowly. Has he damaged the car? There's a bit of damage on the rear right. The rear right's broken for de Grassi. You can see there's a little bit of advertising hoarding caught in the wheel, and I think that car, that suspension on the rear right is not pointing the right way.
There is some slip, but only when I turn on the straight I can drive.
Copy.
So de Grassi crawling back to the pit lane. He said there is some slip, but only when I turn. I can drive it on the straights, okay. Obviously, okay being a broad term, but he's now making his way back to the pit lane then. So de Grassi has tapped the wall somewhere. It's always unusual to see de Grassi crash. I think that's one of the things about him. He was saying earlier on, Nikki, about how he's missed a consistency, and it's very rare you see him in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that, you know, when he was winning the race in, what was it, in Rome, and then he had the, was it a drive shaft failure?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, through no fault of his own. So it really is, as you say, not something that we see from Lucas de Grassi. But that's going to really, really affect things today for him. It's just, particularly now, you know, we're in round 12. We've got 4 races to go. It is so incredibly tight. But it's so important to get a good start here in London. You know, you really need to carry the momentum, have a good day tomorrow so you can continue that. Have a good day today so you can continue that tomorrow.
Andre Lotterer across the line. And he's starting a full power lap now, down into turn 1. The Porsche driver now swinging through this bone dry part of the circuit and then out onto the wet part of the track. Well, it's still fairly dry up the top there because it's undercover. And then it gets slippery coming down here into the chicane where Robin Freitz and Sergio Sedicamera have both had a little off. Now towards turn 9. Out onto Sandstone Lane comes Andre Lotterer. René Rast in front of him on circuit. Over the zebra crossing that caught out, or part of the reason that caught out Stoffel van Dorn. Through the switchback. First sector for Lotterer is about a 10th away from Alex Lynn. It's a good lap that from Lynn. We're seeing a few full powers. You see where they're flashing purple on the left-hand side. That means they're on a full power run at the moment as Lotterer comes into turn 16.
Yeah, I mean, the gap between the times still not really closing up. It's still a second between the top 6 from Lynn down to Andre Lotterer.
A minute left on the clock. Fastest first sector of anyone from Alexander Sims. Lotterer's just a couple of tenths shy after the first 2 sectors. Sims did a fantastic job in qualifying in Rome in changeable conditions. Lotterer goes quickest. Found a lot of time in the final sector. A 1 minute 27.4 goes quicker than Lynn. Buemi goes up to 4th quickest. Lucas de Grassi then. Oh, okay, so he's arrived kind of sideways into turn 6, 7 and 8. And slid sideways into the barrier there, and now he has managed to make it back to the pits. I need to change the rear right corner. Hopefully it wasn't too big an impact. Jake Dennis has just done a very quick first sector in the BMW I Andretti car. 4 tenths quicker than Lotterer. Here comes Dennis, the British driver. And we'll get his middle sector split in a moment, Dennis, and he's still 4 tenths up. Gunter has done a very good sector 1 as well. So both BMWs looking pretty nice in these damp conditions. Jake Dennis took a pole position in that drying qualifying session in Valencia, so strong in changeable conditions. Little wide coming back into the building. Sedicamera goes 3rd fastest. Jake Dennis right to the wall and goes quickest, a 1 minute 27.2. Lost a couple of tenths in the final sector compared to Lotterer. Gunter's lost time in the middle sector compared to Lotterer. Here is the German now. Up the east ramp. A nice double-decker red London bus passing in the background. That was a cool little shot. Gunter through the final turn. And you wait all day for a BMW to top the times, and then two come along at once. Gunter and Dennis. It was a London bus joke.
Very good, Jeff.
No. Freins across the line. Oh, big lock-up from Freins. Lynn goes third quickest. Didn't actually improve on his full power lap. Nick de Vries takes the checkered flag. No one else really improving as they came through that time. So compared to yesterday, where we had a second covering the top 23, as you said, Nikki, it's just now a second covering the top 10.
Yeah, very different story indeed. But good to see BMW there back on top. You know, obviously Gunter had that incredible win in New York, but Jake Dennis didn't really score any points. He, I think he arrived in New York 8th in the standings. You know, just 6 points back from Antonio Felix da Costa, but he's dropped down to 15th, having not scored any points in New York. So this would be a really great moment to turn things around for him and for the team.
So BMW Andretti 1-2 in well, they come from their home race in New York, or one of their home races. They've kind of got three, haven't they? BMW Andretti. They've got the Andretti element in America. They've got the BMW element in Germany, and their actual base is in the UK. So kind of a home race here too.
And obviously a home race for Jake Dennis.
Yeah.
26-year-old British racing driver.
Away you go. The practice starts now. The two Dragons.
You can hear the tunes playing.
Yeah, party's getting started, isn't it? In theory, that left-hand side is going to be a little cleaner than on the right-hand side for the start, but it's not that long a run down to the first corner. As the cars head back out, Roland on the left, Lotterer on the right. These getaways all look fairly even at the moment.
So I wonder what's happened to the DS Techeetah team, because Antonio Felix da Costa and Jean-Eric Vergne are down in 18th and 19th, having been right up there in FP1 in terms of pace and performance.
It's just so difficult to know, isn't it? It's such changeable conditions, and it will be all the way through qualifying that the lap times here barely mean anything. Really, BMW will take positives from it, of course. Envision quite a way away, I have to say. Cassidy and Freins, 21st and 22nd. Obviously, Freins had his spin. He did then do a lap later on 250 kilowatts, but wasn't particularly fast. 2.5 seconds off the pace. Him and Cassidy. We also heard Cassidy on the radio saying, I thought it was a pretty mega lap, but he was a couple of seconds adrift. That's Cassidy thought it was a mega lap. I didn't see it. Cassidy returning to the pit lane now. So, end of free practice 2. Business begins after this in qualifying. And it is Max Gunter who will go in top of the times. Only 5 seconds off the pace of yesterday in the end. He and Jake Dennis for BMW Andretti Motorsport, 3 tenths between them. 6 tenths back to Lotterer, Lynn, Sergio Sedicama in the Dragon. De Vries, Rast, Buemi, Roland, Mortara the top 10. The two Jaguars of Evans and Bird just missing out on side of the top 10 in 11th and 12th. And then you've got Pascal Wehrlein 13th, Sims 14th. The two DS Techeetahs as well, a little bit adrift. Antonio Felix da Costa and Jean-Eric Vergne both really struggled actually in the wet qualifying in Rome. So they'll be hoping they can get to the bottom of whatever their troubles were there. And also the Envision Virgin Racing cars, Nick Cassidy and Robin Freins. So 4 of the real front runners a long, long way down the order. Well, he's been there all session, hasn't he, Stoffel van Dorn? Sitting, standing, watching, getting rained on, still got his helmet on.
And having someone taking photos of him.
I guess that keeps you dry, doesn't it, if you keep your helmet on?
Nice and warm, yeah.
Yeah. Stan Bird.
You might get hat hair though.
Yeah, helps you outside. Exactly. Always the transition between inside and outside. It's okay, I thought there was going to be less grip than what there was. So actually the grip level...
Okay, Sam Bird saying, I thought there was going to be less grip than what there actually was. Robin Freitz had his little 360. What's that little contraption? Oh, it dries, that's a helmet dryer. There we go.
Oh, very neat.
Max Günther was complaining at the end of the session that the inside of his visor was fogging up. So that wasn't ideal for Günther. Freitz looking fairly disappointed, really, isn't he? As he makes his way to the back of the garage. Andre Lotterer, third quickest. Whoop! Mind the Neo. That was Blomqvist coming in. As Lotterer makes his way back down the pit lane, having got weighed at the FIA garage. Don't forget, you can get involved as well with Fan Boost. Scan the QR code down in the bottom right or head to fiaformulae.com/fanboost. And those 5 drivers who are at the top will get an extra power boost in the second half of the race later on this afternoon. De Costa, Van Dorn, always the winners. Bird has got quite a lot for this race, hasn't he? Vernon de Vries, the rest of the top 5. And it's Fan Boost that really could be a big part in the outcome of the race, especially here when it's so tricky to overtake. A little Fan Boost could be very beneficial indeed, as Lucas de Grassi made his way back to the garage. Very wet conditions at the start of free practice 2 ahead of the London E-Prix. Eduardo Mortara struggling and slipping and sliding in the early stages. De Costa wrestling with the car on the run down towards turn 10. Nick de Vries and the Mercedes also struggling. But it was de Vries' teammate Stoffel Van Dorn who really struggled and had a fairly hefty 360 spin and into the barriers coming down towards turn 10. That ended Van Dorn's session. Broken front left after that 360. Robin Freitz did a 360 as well. Actually, it wasn't really a 360, was it? And that was the Envision Virgin Racing Sylvain Philippe's reaction. Sergio Sede Camera lost it coming down into 5 and 6 as well. Sorry, 6 and 7. Ended up 5th at the end of the session, nevertheless. De Costa doing a little burnout, which was nice to see. And then Lucas de Grassi limping home in the closing stages after he too ran into trouble at 6 and 7. Andre Lotterer finished the session 3rd quickest. When everybody went into their full power laps, Nick de Vries was 6th at the end of the session. But it was Max Günther and Jake Tennis, the 2 BMW I Andretti drivers, who went free practice 2 fastest. Good stuff from Günther after he took a win in New York, his first win of the season. Right, we'll be getting underway with qualifying. It's going to be starting in an hour and 20 minutes. We'll be on air in an hour and 6 minutes. And what will the weather conditions be like in London? Sebastian Buemi making his way back to the pit lane, but we will be back in just over an hour. Is this a big opportunity for the drivers in Group 1 to have a chance at getting a good qualifying session in? It's all going to depend on the English weather. And you know what? I can tell you, it's been unpredictable. See you then.